Hello everyone and welcome to FiST Chat, the vodcast that features discussions on the topics of film, science and technology. My name is Ben Warner and I'm joined once again by my good friend and colleague Steve Kern. How are you doing this week, Steve?
Hi everyone there in FiST Chat land. I'm very well. I'm, searching our past to find out where we came from this week, Ben.
Yeah, as have I. It's a very confusing and interesting conundrum, and I'm not sure we got any answers during our search either.
No, not at all.
We'll get to that shortly, but we'll kick off this week's topic on something rather curious that we found this week about how Stone Age artists, prehistoric ancestors, actually created films on cave walls.
Cave-O motion.
Yeah. I mean, this is the original sort of animation kind of thing, really. Essentially what was happening is Stone Age artists were using cartoon-like techniques to give the impression that wild beasts were trotting or running across cave walls. And the interesting thing is they actually drew in the motion into the image, which is quite amazing, really. And it just, I guess, kind of goes to show how we've had such a deep-seated fascination with not only images, but moving images, and also perhaps, I guess, possibly seeing ourselves in those images as well.
Yeah, and also just the importance of light for us. I mean, we see everything thanks to light. For me personally, it's a great story. At first I didn't know what to make of it. And I guess we sometimes think that our ancestors or cave people 30,000 years ago would be a bit thick or a bit slow or, not as suave and sophisticated as us. But I guess the truth is they probably really weren't that different. They didn't have a huge technological base at that stage on which to, improve their lives. We all know what it's like to sit around a campfire and see the light flicker and the shadows dance and how that mesmerises us. And they obviously did that in their caves with their drawings. And what's truly amazing, though, is they worked out then that they could animate those drawings. And that's awesome.
Well, running with some tests, these particular researchers actually found that if they flickered a flashlight over it, that it actually gave the appearance of animation. So perhaps whether they did it with fire or whatever inside the cave, they could actually see that as well. And it's really quite amazing and a very, very ancient precursor to what we know as film, really, if you think about it. And it really is amazing. But in seeing that story, it just sort of rekindled my interest in a lot of the history of film and where that's all come from. Obviously, if you start back then, you've got all these pictograms on cave walls and drawings, and then you've got ancient civilizations using hieroglyphs for writing, pictures as writing rather than actual kind of words and that sort of thing.
And some of those civilizations, I mean, we can only speculate, but they actually drew frame by frame images on things such as pots, on circular things such as pots. I mean, who knows? Did they spin those pots and probably, laugh for hours?
But also, what gave them the idea to do it in the first place? That's kind of an interesting thing as well, and and to see it evolve, turning into, I guess, stage productions, I guess would be a way of putting it, or photography. And also the invention of cinema itself, where people were running away from the train and all of that because it looks so real. But it was interesting if we flash forward to when film cinema was invented. It seemed like it was invented as a cheaper and simpler way to provide entertainment to the masses, because previously the way that things would get done was that people would have to travel long distances to see major dioramas or, amusement parks or that sort of thing. When I read that, and I thought that's really interesting that, it's considered a cheap form of entertainment. That's how it started. And now you look at what it's turned into. I mean, you could argue still that films are still a cheap form of entertainment, but there's certainly a hell of a lot more resources thrown at them now than what than what they used to when they started.
Well, that's right, and it is interesting. That goes to show a shift in economics. Back then, as expensive as film would have been, if you made one film, you could make duplicates, and they could go to all corners of the globe, and everyone could watch them. And I guess that's what made them effective like that. Of course, today I think films still, the Hollywood films still get seen by a lot of people. And that's because even though they cost hundreds of millions to make and aren't always that good, hundreds of people still get to see them. So it actually probably works out fairly cheaply.
Absolutely. I think it'd be good to, we mentioned last week about, going to see Prometheus. I think that's a good thing to tie in with this particular topic here, since it delves into the origins of our species. And it's also an excellent example of a very expensive film with a lot of resources thrown at it. But,
Such as 3D, Ben?
Such as 3D, and I can report to you that I only saw it in 2D. But your good self, you saw it in 3D. So between the two of us, we can cover what we thought.
If I had my way again, I probably would have watched the opening sequence in 3D and then just gone to a TD session.
Absolutely. But that's actually a good example of that, of how it's all gone through the ages and how things like that have come about. And ironically, I think, that film was about, I guess, in a sense, what we're talking about here, but it seems Hollywood's also sort of moving on to, past historical figures and sort of portraying them in a different light. I like this story you sent through about Sir Isaac Newton as being Hollywood's next action hero.
Well, if they can do it with Sherlock Holmes, then they can do it with Isaac Newton, and I'm all for it. I mean, I've always thought the Hulk was the ultimate science or hero for all scientists, because just don't make Bannister angry. But I think Isaac Newton would be fine. Absolutely. Very steampunk, it would be very Jules Verne steampunk.
Absolutely. I do like this bit at the end where they think that whatever film comes out of it's going to gloss over the fact that many of Newton's methods for detecting counterfeiters ran the risk of mercury poisoning. So maybe they'll just, hopefully they don't encourage people too much to think that they can do the same thing.
That's right.
Which sort of neatly translates into our first news bite, actually, which was actually a bit more of a disturbing story, really. The first example of how social media is being used potentially by someone in a murder. So, they... kind of like what you might have expected in a Hollywood horror film, like a Saw film or something like that. Essentially what happened was a Canadian psycho killer. He possibly was...
Porn star psycho killer.
Porn star psycho killer. That makes it even better. And he allegedly filmed himself killing and dismembering a Chinese student. And... it potentially could be the first example of how social media has been used in this way. And it brings up the age-old question of how Hollywood influences people to do they influence people to do these things, or is it or is there no connection there?
Well, I remember seeing many years ago now, Man Bites Dog. And I think that was the start of a slippery slope. Have you seen that film, Ben?
I haven't, no, but is the title self-explanatory?
You should see it because it deals with this topic. Obviously, it was a couple of decades ahead of its time.
Yeah.
French film, quite interesting. But this guy, I mean, he posted the videos. That's just taking killing psychopaths and the internet to a whole new level, and not a good one. But I mean, I don't know what you say about people like that, except absolutely. They're very, very unwell.
But that's the thing. Obviously Hollywood or any filmmaker really is into exploring any sort of facet of, humanity, so to speak, and putting it on screen, and that by definition would include the darker aspects of humans. So why is it that they can't go and make say a horror film without being accused of leading to a real life event, life imitating art kind of thing?
I agree, and I mean, at that rate, you'd say that Bret Easton Ellis in his books, have exactly the same artistic right, and maybe I wouldn't argue that if I believed that this Canadian psycho killer was actually making a documentary, which I guess he kind of did.
He did.
So, I'll leave that one with the FiST Chat fans out there to work out. What sort of rating should it get?
Oh, well, it just stays on the internet unrated.
Well, exactly. I'll be steering clear of it.
Just one final point to make is that it seemed like this guy actually used some of the music from the American Psycho soundtrack.
Oh, he did he? Well, fantastic.
So that pretty much covers it. Alrighty, we'll move on to our science soundbite, something a bit lighter, hopefully. But the need to drink 2 liters of water on a regular basis is a complete myth. Perhaps not a complete myth, just that if you drink the equivalent of 8 glasses of water a day, you'll be fine. It's just this. It got this sort of mixed up with the thing that it's not counting the water you would get from eating and drinking other things.
Yeah, well, look, historically there have been a lot of little mix-ups like this when it comes to nutrition and health over the years. I think the famous one in the 1980s, or in Australia at any rate, was when they decided that all our Olympic athletes were eating pasta. So therefore, everyone in Australia should eat 3 big bowls of pasta a day. Only problem was most Australians aren't Olympic athletes.
They don't have a need for those extra carbohydrates.
They really just don't. And I think the whole water thing has once again been very similar to that. You do need to drink enough water every day to turn your urine clear.
Yeah.
And that's basically the rule.
Yeah.
If you don't, obviously it'll be more yellow, more concentrated, and that's not good. That's putting a stress on your body. Everybody is different. Everybody has different needs and is working or operating under different environments. Just use a bit of common sense. But, 2 litres probably won't hurt you. However, water is toxic in large enough doses, and people have died after drinking 6 or 7 litres of water. So, maybe you want to just stick to a few glasses at a time.
Absolutely. All righty. In the last little bit that we have, we'll move on to our tech news bite. And Facebook it is again. But this time, an analyst is claiming it'll disappear by 2020. And kind of makes some interesting points about why that might be so. Maybe maybe it might happen, but maybe a more realistic view might be that it won't have that exponential growth it's experienced in the past decade.
Stopped, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But the key to whether it grows or not, or is still the dominant force in social media, is how it adapts to the new environment and how it keeps itself relevant. Because at the moment, it's not actually a very mobile platform. I mean, you've got it on your phone. You can put it on your phone. You can put it on your iPad or whatever and take it with you. But it's actually a very clumsy kind of experience on those platforms. So you can see how an analyst might come to that conclusion that they might not be on top of that.
Oh, look, absolutely. Mobile platforms have only really taken hold in the last 3 years and really accelerated in the last 2.
Yeah.
For the 5 years before that or so, Facebook is a browser-based desktop application,
and there doesn't seem to have been any sort of improvements since then.
No, they keep on changing the timeline all the time. I've given up.
but
I don't even know how Facebook works anymore.
Yeah, exactly. But the interesting thing, though, is that, as you mentioned before we got on, that one of their potential ways they might grow is to open it up to under 13-year-olds, which could probably open a can of worms there if, given their privacy problems that they've had in the past.
Well... Am I going to be allowed to open a under 13 Facebook page?
Yeah.
How are they going to know? If if I'm up to no good, I mean, I just don't think it's going to work at all. And I think that's one of the reasons Facebook will ultimately fall over, because, as you say, Ben, someone will come up with a better mobile device. The other piece of news is for those of us that use LinkedIn, that got hacked during the week, and 6 million usernames and passwords were put up on the internet somewhere. So LinkedIn didn't bother to inform anyone until they got found out. So that's very nice of them. As we keep saying, Ben, I think it's only a matter of time before something big happens in the social media space that finishes all of it off.
Absolutely. Alrighty, now we'll just move on to our recommendations quickly, and this kind of leads on to something we'll mention right at the end, but I've actually been playing around with the Windows 8 release preview. I've just sort of emulated on my MacBook, and it's actually really good, very, very interesting. It's still got a bit of that Frankenstein kind of feel to it, you know, flipping between the tile interface and the normal desktop, but it's actually very responsive and doesn't require higher system requirements, which is quite impressive for after 3 years of development that they've been able to keep it down. But that's obviously to put the operating system on lower powered devices, so it doesn't stress them too much. So that's been quite good. And just Google Windows 8 release preview download and try it out for yourself if you're savvy with installing that and playing around with pre-release software. So it's all very good. And Steve, do you have anything you like to recommend there, or?
I just like to say to everyone out there, I hope you saw the transit of Venus during the week, because that's it now for another 117 years.
And thank you very much for your expert photography. That was a fantastic shot that we posted up during the week.
No worries. I'm completely blind now, but it was worth it.
Absolutely. All righty, so we're out of time. So thanks again, Steve, for the chat. And we'll we usually don't announce what we're going to talk about next week, because we like to keep an aura of mystery here. But WWDC is actually happening. I'm not sure if it's actually started as we're recording this now, or it will in a couple of hours. But I think we should cover that next week with whatever announcements they have, and we can probably tie in some of the tech, Windows stuff and all that sort of thing, and how the overall picture is, because we keep coming back to that every now and then. It's always interesting to have a look at what's going on in that space. So that's it. Don't forget our website, www.fistchat.com. You can get all our links there. That's it for this week's episode, so we'll catch you next week.